بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد كمثل غيث أعجب الكفار نباته ثم يهيج فتراه مصفرا ثم يكون حطاما وفي الآخرة عذاب شديد ومغفرة من الله ورضوان وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. صدق الله العظيم. Honorable ulama, beloved brothers, respected elders and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, all praises are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Blessings and salutations on Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, it is a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given us again the opportunity to be a part of a gathering which is very blessed in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are living in a time and in a society today where things are moving very fast. Things are changing and are progressing day by day. And amongst these things which are changing, and from a worldly view is progressing, is the entertainment industry. If we look around, we'll see advertisements, we see billboards, we see on the television, on the computers, on our phones, how things are changing. We see how entertainment is advertised all around us. And we see how the minds of the masses are manipulated by the entertainment industry. Now what we need to realize and try to determine that in my day-to-day life, how can I stop myself by being affected in a negative way from these surroundings? What can I take out of these surroundings which are positive, and what is negative? So in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains a beautiful verse to us wherein we are told the different stages of a human's life. And in this verse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, i'lamu, that know, O people, i'lamu annama al-hayat ad-dunya, that this worldly life that we have is only la'ib wa lahu, it is only play and amusement. And the verse further goes on to say, wa zina, and this worldly life is zina, is just decoration and beauty. And then the next stage, wa tafakhurun bainakum, where man boasts, they boast amongst one another. وَتَكَاثُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ, and they rival in wealth, and فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ, in wealth and in children. And the example Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives further, He says كَمَثَلِ غَيْثٍ, that the example of this is كَمَثَلِ غَيْثٍ أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارِ, that when there is an abundance of rain and the farmers look at their crops and they see the benefit of this rain. أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارِ, the farmers, they are amazed by all this rain and they love to see their crops harvest. أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارَ نَبَاتُ ثُمَّ يَهِيجُ, then once these crops have harvested, they dry up. فَتَرَاهُ مُصْفَرًّا, then you see all the fields become yellow. ثُمَّ يَكُونُ حُطَامًا, then it will decrease and become nothing but straw. Now this verse is a very comprehensive verse. The first part of the verse says la'ib and lahu. Allama Qurtubi rahimahullah explains in his tafsir, one of the quotes, there are many different definitions of la'ib and lahu, of play and amusement. One definition he gives is la'ib is ma raghiba fi dunya, all that which you aspire towards in the dunya. And lahwa مَا أَلْهَى عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ, that which makes you ghafil and makes you turn your attention away from the akhirah. Now, this la'ib and lahwa, there's different stages mentioned in this verse are the different stages. If we further look into detail into this verse, are the different stages in our life. The first stage is of la'ib, where it is meaningless play. When we are children, when we are young, we see children, they be playing around with toys, and whatever you give them, if you give them a small toy, that toy is the world to that child. And he will play around, he'll run around, he'll scream and shout, and he'll throw the toy at you, and he'll want it back, and he'll throw it at you again, and he'll want it back. And his whole world will revolve around this toy. But for someone who's an onlooker, he will see this is meaningless play. When we grow older, and we pass the stage of infancy, and we think back to our younger days, or we see our nephews and nieces running around, or we see our younger brothers and sisters, then we realize that playing around at that age was just meaningless play. But if you look at it further, you'll see that to that child, those toys or that playing around or those games are everything. Then this child gets a bit older, and he still carries on playing. He's reached the age of infancy or a bit older, and now it's meaningful play, not meaningless. He now plays games, he starts playing sports, he's competitive, so he's got some meaning behind his playing. And he wants to be the best, and he wants to become popular in his school or in his college. So from meaningless play, he goes on to meaningful play. And then as he gets older, and he realizes that the world is not just the area which I live in or the house which I live in, and it's no longer that toy which I used to play with when I was younger. There's a big world out there. And as he gets older, and he reaches the end, the later stages of his school, and he goes into college and university, then now even those games become something of the past. Now he wants to become popular in the community. He wants to become popular amongst his friends. He has to make sure he's wearing the latest clothes. He is very meticulous on his appearance and her appearance. He has to make sure from head to toe everything he's wearing is designer. He wants to make, and now he realizes that the things I used to do in the past was just a waste of time. Those games I used to play, those toys I would play with when I was younger, if he sees a small child, he's like, that child doesn't know anything about the world yet. He's still a young boy, he doesn't know anything. Yet this boy himself is still in his late teens. So now those two stages of the past were just something of the past. And then he further goes on, and the verse says, وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ, that you will start boasting amongst one another. So now he reaches a stage where he wants to stand out in the crowd. And then he gets even older. And now he's reaching late adolescence, and he's getting to middle age. And now at this stage, he is worried about accumulating wealth. He is worried about getting the best degrees. He is worried about building his own empire. He is worried about getting his own house or houses, his own car, his own family. So the verse further says, وَتَكَاثُرٌ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ, that he will want more children and more wealth. And he will compare himself to other people. That no, this person has this much, so I need more. Whereas in the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, if you see someone who is above you in status, and you feel that you want to be like that, then look at those below you. Did you ever think of those below you? Did you ever think of the majority of the population on earth today, in 2013? The majority of the world is poor. The majority of the world is poor. Compare how many first world countries there are and how many third world countries there are. So now, the things of the past again become a thing of the past. He's no longer worried about those toys. He's no longer worried about those competitive games. He's no longer worried so much about what he's wearing so much. He's more worried about his bank account. He's more worried about what job, what degree he'll get, which will get him a better job. which qualifications, which work experience will get him a better job. And then as he gets older, even وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ وَتَكَاثُرٌ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ. So he will want more children and he will want more wealth. And nowadays even the children, the parents, once he has children, he wants to make sure that his children get the best education. He wants to make sure that his child gets the best of everything. And when he's looking for a spouse for his child or her child, he will want to make sure that that partner which he is choosing is the best person he can choose. And then he reaches old age. And what happens when he reaches old age? When he reaches old age, he will realize that all the things in the past was just a waste of time. When he reaches old age, it will be just as the 10-year-old looking at the 2-year-old thinking he's wasting his time playing with that toy. In the same way, when we reach our old age, we will look at our life, or we will look at those who are younger than us and realize how much time we actually wasted. And the example that was given, so at the beginning everything looks nice, looks lush and green when the crops are growing for those farmers. But then when those crops dry up and we reach old age and we look at what we left behind, we'll see there's nothing there. ثُمَّ يَهِيجُ فَتَرَاهُ مُصْفَرًّا. You'll see the fields and the farm, all those crops have become dry and have become like straw. In the same way, when we get to reach our old age, we will see that we haven't left anything behind and our life is just dry. And all those, in another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surat Ali Imran, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ. Because one might ask that, okay, you've explained all these different stages of life, but what about in between? All those, through those different stages, we're living in a society where I go to school, I go to university, I go to work. Now I get distracted by the girls, I get distracted by my friends. Some circles are taking drugs, some circles are drinking, some circles are doing both. Some boys gamble. And when you get to it, start working and you earn some money, then you want to go out on the weekends with your friends, or you're living on campus and all your friends are going out and you don't want to be the odd one out. So then one might say, so how do I stay away from all of this? One might say, it's easy for you to sit there and say all of this, but we are living it. We go through this day in, day out. Okay, you explained the verse to us, but now how do we go about our day-to-day life without all of this affecting us? And the answer is, it will definitely affect you. Your surroundings will definitely affect you. And the environment is so hostile outside, we all know. We live in the same city as you. We do not live in a cave in Mount Hira somewhere. We're all from the same city, born in this. Well, we may have been born in different places, but we grow up in the same place. And we went to the same schools, same colleges and same universities. So we know what the environment is like. But what we need to do is be able to build ourselves to such a stage where we can take the positives and leave out the negatives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ. That the beauty of shahawat, of our desires, the love of our desires has been beautified. مِنَ النِّسَاءِ, from the women, وَالْبَنِينَ, and children, وَالْقَنَاطِيرِ الْمُقَنْطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ. In short, wealth. Qanatir means heaps of gold and dhahab and silver. So all of this wealth, women and pomp and glamour and all of this has been beautified linnas, for the people, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? To test us, to see how strong we are, to see if we earn our stage in paradise. Now going to Jannah is not something easy. It's not something which we're going to just apply for or purchase with a couple of £100. It is something which we will have to strive for. It is something which we need to work towards. So the process to get there will not be easy. Therefore, all of these shahawat, all of these desires that we have, will be a witness for us or against us. If we follow these desires, if we follow our nafs, and we commit sins day in, day out, hoping that, oh no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive me, then we are living in deception. Many a times, shaitan whispers in our ears that don't worry, just do it today, and then you can read istighfar, or you can make tawbah tomorrow. This is the deception of shaitan. And this is one of the biggest deceptions of shaitan. We get many people asking us that, oh, I've done this, I've done that, what can I do? Yes, we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafurur Rahim, but that does not mean that we do a sin with the intention that, don't worry, after the sin I will ask for forgiveness and it should be okay. And then the day after we do the same thing again. There are conditions for tawbah. We need to, once we do a sin, we should regret the sin. So moving on, once we have reached old age, we will realize that our whole past life we just wasted it. And everything will seem trivial. All of those houses, all of those cars, all of those things which we would aspire towards when we were younger, when we're in old age, those things will seem like they're not important anymore. And then once after old age, if we reach old age and we go from this world and death which will hit every single one of us, then we will realize that this whole world, we'll realize the value of this whole world after our death. We get caught up obviously in our day-to-day life because of all this play and games around us, and all these amusing things which occupy our minds. Allama Rumi rahimahullah further elucidates this message with an example in his Mathnawi. Then he says that if you were to see a baby, or if you were to get a baby who's in its mother's womb, the baby is in his mother's womb, and you was to tell this baby that outside of your mother's womb there is a big world out there, and there's so many people, there's so many billions of people, there's so many countries, and this is a big planet, and this planet is part of a galaxy, and these galaxies are part of a universe. He says this baby won't understand what you're talking about. Why? Because his whole world is simply the womb of his mother. His whole world is simply the womb of his mother. And when he tells you, when the person is trying to tell this baby will not listen and say to him, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand what you're talking about. And then once this baby comes into this world, and it comes out of his mother's womb, then Allama Rumi rahimahullah further explains that even when you tell the baby now, that didn't I tell you there was a bigger world? Didn't I tell you that outside your mother's womb there's a whole different perception, a different life? Even then, that baby, everything around him will only be his world. The room, if you tell him that outside of this room there's another 4 rooms which make up this house, there's corridors, there's a bathroom, there's this, there's a garden, there's a front yard, this baby won't understand. Why? Because the baby hasn't seen it. That which you haven't seen is hard for you to understand. So in the same way, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ, that this world is nothing but items of deception. It is hard for us to understand because we are still in our mother's womb. Only once we get to the other side, then we will realize that there is a whole other world out there. And what is that world which we need to aspire towards? It is Jannah. So in the same way that this child, or this baby rather, could not understand that there is a whole earth and there's so many other people living in this world, and the world is so big and so vast, That's the example of us when we explain about Jannah and Jahannam. Many of us find it hard to understand, especially non-Muslims who, when you speak on the topic of religion, they don't want to know, because the secular society has taken over and has more or less globalized the whole world, which is a whole other topic on its own. Dr. Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah, who was of the Indian subcontinent, he explains that what is religion? What is religion? Now, many people have different definitions of religion. So the Dr. Saab says, who's a very saintly person and a very learned person, he says that religion is nothing but for a person needs to just change his angle of viewing on the world. He needs to change his perception on the world. The world we are living in, obviously day to day is going to carry on, but we need to change our angle of view. What do I mean by changing our angle of view? We are studying, for example, or we go to work, for example. Now we need to ask ourselves, why am I studying? Or why am I going to work? What is it that makes me get out of my bed in the morning? Now if we change our angle of view, if we change our intention, our day-to-day life, our whole occupation can become religion. What do I mean by that? I am studying because I want to educate myself, because I want to hopefully go on to earn and get a good job through which I will support myself, my family, and earn halal. This is just for example. So now if he makes this small intention, he is day to day going to university, and he's day to day going to school, and he's day to day going to work, will become his occupation, in the sense this will become his religion. Because religion is not only to do with our salah and the main 5 pillars. It is to do with our day-to-day conduct in our day-to-day life. So if we change our intentions then and look at the world from a different view, then we will know where our limits lie. If we change our angle of view, we will know that when it is the time of salah, we have to stop watching football, whether it is the Champions League final or the World Cup final. We need to know our limits when it comes to moving in social circles. We may feel the peer pressure when all of our friends are going to going to a party after work. They may be going to the bar, and some of them may even be Muslim friends. But we need to know where our limits are, because the Quran is telling us, إِنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا لَعِبٌ وَلَهُ, that this world is only play and amusement, and mata'ul ghurur, items of deception. So do not be deceived. Yes, it seems outwardly, it will seem like fun. Yes, you think you're missing out on the fun, but imagine the sweetness you will taste of iman in your heart when you are rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A sinner will always be under stress, will always be depressed. And a person who follows the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will always be in peace at heart, which is the only real peace you're going to get. So when you're getting a phone call to go out on the weekend, or when everyone's making a plan for a certain date, that we're all going to go out today and we're all going to do this and we're all going to do that. Yes, the alcohol may make you drunk and give you a good feeling. Yes, that spliff may give you a good feeling. Yes, that pill may give you a high or give you a rush. But this kick and this rush is temporary. It won't last forever. And as soon as it comes down, as soon as you get high and you come down again, the come down is just as worse. Someone who takes an ecstasy pill, he will get on such a high and feel so good, he will start hugging everybody around him. And he will get so emotional, and everybody will become his best friend, and he will say, I love you, and oh, where have you been all my life? But as soon as that buzz and that kick starts wearing off, go and look at the state of him or her. Go and see how bad he feels. That high which he went on, he will be crashing down just as fast. So all of these things are just deception. And we need to know where our limits are. We need to build ourselves at a stage where the people around us are affected by us, not that we are affected by the people around us. Another major problem which we face is all of us have phones, all of us have tablets, and all of us have computers. And we surf the internet for half of the day, whether we're at work or school or university. And we come across sites which we know we shouldn't be on. But naturally, the instinct of man and woman, we have that instinct where we want to fulfill our desires. So we go on websites which are not befitting for any human, let alone a Muslim. Now these websites have reached such a stage where psychologists and neurologists and all sorts and doctors have even admitted to the fact that it has reached a stage of an epidemic. If you look at the statistics of people surfing these websites, then you'll be shocked. And if you read on the effect it has on your brain, you'll be even more shocked. And the reason we keep going back to these websites is because it becomes an addiction. And this addiction can be likened to the addiction of drugs. Why am I saying this? Because if someone was to take a drug, then for example cocaine, then this will release dopamine into his body, from his brain. And this is that rush he gets, that high he gets, is the dopamine levels which are being transmitted from his brain. Now when a person watches pornography, then it releases the same dopamine in his body. And this dopamine gives you that feel-good feeling, and it gives you that high, and it gives you that rush. And then what happens is you stop watching, but now these images are in your subconscious. They've been downloaded into your body, into your brain rather. And it goes from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. So you can keep on thinking about it. Because your brain wants that feel-good feeling again. And once it wears off, you will want to go and browse those websites once again. And again, and again, and again. So those dopamine levels are released, and you get that feel-good factor once again. But we need to remember the verses which have been said that these are nothing but items of deception. And it will affect our way of thinking, it will cause neural pathways in your brain where you will begin to look around you, and everything in your brain will be processed according to what you have been watching. I've said this in a talk before, where when you keep on watching these kind of websites, it will literally make neural pathways in your brain. Pathways, you can liken it to an example, if you're walking in a field. So now when you're walking in that field, if you keep walking over one path, then you'll see the grass will stop growing there, and it will form like a little dirt road or a dirt pathway for people to walk, and there will be grass growing on either side. So in the same way in your brain, it will cause a neural pathway. Then everything you look at, everything which is processed, from which you hear, when you see, it will be processed through those neural pathways. So what will happen is, when you see someone or something, the way you think about it will be in a dirty way. You will be looking at a woman on the road, and the first thing you will think of is something dirty. And your brain will reach such a stage where you will be looking at your own, na'udhu billah, your own family members in such a way. You'll be looking at, and it will go to the extent where you will look at people of the same sex in that way. And if you don't believe me, you can do this research. And now it's not so hard to do research. In the olden days, we had to look at books. If you tell a child today to look at a book, he'll say, what are you talking about? Tell him to read a newspaper, he won't want to know. But now with the click of a finger, you could read all of this. So we need to be wary and know where our limits lie. We need to know that those folders on our phones with 100 images of models and supermodels and glamour models are nothing but items of deception. But then one might say that if this is the case, what's going to happen to, why is all of this here? We find in the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam where he says, "Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir." Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir. That this world is a prison for a believer. Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min, a prison for a believer, wa jannatul kafir, and paradise for a non-believer. And paradise for a non-believer. I'm sure this hadith will answer many questions which are lingering in our minds. Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir. So let's not waste our time. Let's not wait to experience, is the word which everyone likes to use today. That I want to experience this and I want to experience that. But life is too short to experience everything. Learn from other people's mistakes. Learn from other people's mistakes, because life is too short to make your own mistakes. If you know that the result of such and such a thing will be this, or the result of such and such a thing will be that, if I don't stop this, then it will make my habit worse, it will make my life worse, it will make my home life worse. For example, if I don't stop watching pornography, then all of these images which are uploaded or downloaded or whatever you want to call it into our minds, then what kind of relationship will you have with your wife? Think about it. Many problems which are in marital problems which we have today are because from the age of 11 and 12 we've been watching all of these things till the age of 25, 30, and even after we're married. Because of that addiction, we don't want to let go. We don't know where our limit is. And then we want our wife to succumb to all of those demeaning acts which we were watching for the past 10, 15 years. And every time we watched, we saw a different woman, different shape, different size, different color. And then you get married and you want to do all of that with one woman. What kind of life will you have? What kind of life will your wife have? But she doesn't know that she's competing with all of those images which are downloaded into your brain. So we need to be careful. The effects of all of these things are very detrimental. So when the Quran tells us, do not go near zina, لا تقربوا الزنا إنه كان فاحشة, that it is immoral, it is filthy. When the Quran tells us, keep your gazes low, it does not just mean when you're walking on the street, keep your gaze low. It also means when you're surfing the net, keep your gaze low. In the sense that look at that which you're supposed to be looking at. I don't mean you're sitting in front of a computer and look down. It means you surf that which you know you should be surfing, or that for the purpose of which you logged onto the internet in the first place. So all of these, the Quran has stopped us right at the beginning, so we don't even need to go into the deeper details. And I'm only touching on the surface of one major issue, because this is a very big problem nowadays. And it's just as bad as those youngsters who are involved in drugs and alcohol. Yes, we understand you want to experience it, but how far are you going to go? Do you want to reach a stage where you become dependent on it? Do you want to reach a stage where you'll be begging on the streets, or it will make you come down to stealing stealing from your own family in some cases, just to sell so you can get that 20 pounds worth, just for that 1 gram or 2, just for that kick for 5-10 minutes, maybe an hour. How long is it going to last? If you have reached a stage, if you have not experienced it, you're not missing out on anything. If you are doing it, then cut yourself off from it right now. Yes, it takes a lot of willpower. Yes, you may need to go to rehab. But if you reach a stage, because at the beginning it's only leisure. Many people, youngsters, they do this and that. They might want to experience a club. They might want to experience a shot or two. They say, I just want to see how it is, just for leisure. But then that leisure increases. They say, oh no, I just want to do it a bit more, only till I'm 20, 22, or only until I'm married. But ask those who are doing it before marriage if they've stopped after marriage. We know what is happening around us. And it is a shame that we have to speak about these kind of things in the masajid. But it is necessary. And another big problem is none of the youngsters want to listen to their elders. If a father tells you something, you just brush him off. Oh, what does he know? But what you're forgetting is he has twice more experience than you. If you was to tell your little brother something, you'd be telling him because you know you've got more life experience than him. You've got more knowledge and wisdom than him. You've seen more than him or her. So in the same way, if you're telling your little brother or sister something and you would want them to listen to you and you know you're telling them out of their best interest, then you should also know that your father or mother is telling you out of your best interest. They want what's best for you. They're not telling you just because their mom and dad they just lecture me, they don't know anything. Oh, they're from back home, what do they know? You try to move to another country and do what they've done and then talk. You try to move to a country where they do not follow your religion, they do not know your culture, where your whole upbringing was different, and do what they've done and then you can talk. Many people say, oh, my father can't even speak English properly. What does he know? Since when is speaking English, or since when does the fact that you can speak English mean you're some educated person? Since when does it mean that, oh, I can speak English, so that means I'm educated, or that means I'm somebody, and my parents speak with an accent, so they're stupid? If you're thinking like that, then you're more stupid than anybody. The whole education system, unfortunately, teaches us to think this way. They have taken character, good character, akhlaq, respect, and the adab we should have for our parents. They've taken all of that out. An educated person is he who respects his parents. An educated person is he who is honest. An educated person is he who knows his limits. An educated person is he who listens to the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and knows where he should stop and draw the line. Once he starts taking those drugs for leisure, if he reaches a stage of dependency, more than likely his life will be full of misery. So like I was saying, if you haven't started, do not start. If you have started and you're in that stage of it being leisure, stop while you can. Because if you reach the stage of dependency on those drugs, on that alcohol, on that pornography, then you will reach a stage where it will be hard to do a U-turn. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding and keep us away from all of these sins and these hostile environments which we have around us. In a hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he explains to us the value of this whole dunya, the value of the world. Now we know obviously the world is a very big place. I'm not just saying the world thinking it's a small, it's nothing. But Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is a hadith narrated in Muslim. It says, مَا الدُّنْيَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا مِثْلُ مَا يَجْعَلُ أَحَدُكُمْ أُصْبَعَهُ فِي الْيَمِّ فَلْيَنْظُرْ بِمَا يَرْجِعُ. That the world, in comparison to the akhirah, in comparison to the hereafter, is not. The example he gives that the world is nothing, and the example given in the hadith is, it is as if you put your finger into the ocean. You put your finger into the ocean. Now think about going to the ocean. I'm sure many of us have been to a seaside or a beach. Now put your hand, if you was to put your hand into the ocean and take your finger out. So you dip it into the ocean and take it out. So whatever water or drops you're left with on your finger is the example given in this hadith of the dunya to the akhirah. That this drop on your finger, that's coming off your finger, this drop is the worth of this dunya in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this should be the worth of the dunya in our hearts as well. If we had this worth of dunya in our hearts, meaning just a drop in the ocean, then it will be easy for us to draw the line. It will be easy for us to look at the bigger picture. It will be easy for us to sacrifice our nafs and our desire and our want to commit zina, our want to go with this girl and that, our want to go with this boy and that. All of those wants and needs and all of this backward thinking, which I call backward thinking. The reason being, our beloved Ustad, when we were studying, he mentioned to us, Shaykh Abdul Hamid, Hafidhahullah, that around the world today, everyone thinks that we, people who follow religion, who follow Islam, the Muslimin, are backwards. They think the thinking is backwards. But if you look at it from an Islamic angle, as I was saying before, change your angle of view. Every day that goes past, we are getting closer to what? Can anybody give me an answer? Getting closer to death. Yes? And every day that goes past is getting closer to Qiyamah. So, if you are getting closer to death or getting closer to Qiyamah, the thing you're working towards is your death and is Yawm al-Qiyamah. So if you are working towards that, who can be more modern than you? Who can be more modern than a person who is working towards his akhirah or working towards his death? Does everyone understand that? If you are working towards your death, then how can you say that person is backwards? If you are working towards your akhirah, then how can you say that person is backwards? But we need to change our thinking and our angle of view. And we know the thinking of the environment around us today is the opposite. Everyone wants to be humanists, as they call it, and indulge in everything and every desire and every form of amusement and play which we get. And it's not just happened today, it's been happening from ages and ages, from the time mankind came onto this earth. Because shaitan is with every person. When you see that girl walking down the street, she may not be the best looking, or this goes vice versa. If there's a guy walking down the street and the girl looks at him thinking, wow, he looks nice, or she looks nice. But what we don't realize is, while that girl is walking down the street, shaitan has put a veil on our eyes, and there's other small shayateen spinning around that girl, making her look attractive. Why? For us to fall into sin and for us to fall into all of this vice and evil. In another verse of the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nas, that O people, Ya ayyuhan nas, referring to everybody, not just Muslimin, to Muslims and non-Muslims. Inna wa'da Allahi haqq, that the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is true. فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا, do not let this worldly life deceive you. Do not let this worldly life deceive you. Yes, we need to live in the world. Yes, we need to work. Yes, we can buy this and that. It doesn't mean we need to be aloof from the world. But do not be deceived. Look at the wording used by the Quran. Do not be deceived. And the verse further goes on to explain, وَلَا يَغُرَّنَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغَرُورِ, and do not let al-gharur deceive you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who is al-gharur? Meaning the biggest deceiver, referring to shaitan. So shaitan will allure us in. He will lure us into doing bad. He will make everything look nice. But we should not be deceived. We should not be deceived. We should take advice from our elders. You know, many youngsters, they think they're very clever. When their father tells them something, they don't want to listen, as I was mentioning earlier. So on a lighter note, there was once a child who he reached his late teens and he passed his driving test. So now he's trying to tell his dad, "Oh dad, you need to buy me a car." So his father said, "So earn your own money and buy it." He goes, "No, I'm still studying, I can't work and this and that right now. I want to still concentrate on my studies, so please can you buy me a car?" So he goes, "Okay, we'll make an agreement. If you concentrate on your studies and up your grades from a D to a B and an A, and if you study the Quran and Hadith a bit more, then we'll see after 2-3 months if you improve, and if you cut that stupid hairstyle of yours, then I might buy you a car." So he thought about it and he said, "Yeah, I'm sure I could do that for a few months just to get a car." But in the back of his mind, he said, "Once I get a car, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to pick up my friends, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there, I'm going to go to the West End." So after 6 weeks or 8 weeks, his father did see an improvement in him. He saw that his grades were getting better and his teachers were happy with him, and he was actually opening books and studying, and studying meaning his school studies, and he was looking at Sirat, and he was looking at Islamic books as well. So the father was happy. So after 6 to 8 weeks, he said, "Oh son, I'm very happy with what you're doing, mashallah." So the son says, "Yes, I told you I will, listen to you and I'll fulfill your agreement. So now can you buy me a car?" So the father says, "Okay, your grades were a bit better, and I can see you started praying your salah, and I could see it was affecting you. The Quran that you were reading and the Sirah or the Hadith that you were reading was affecting you." So he says, "Yes, I was, father. See, I told you." And then the father said, "But you still didn't cut your hair. Why didn't you cut your hair?" He says, "No, I'm growing my hair because I read in the Hadith that the Prophet ﷺ had long hair, and some of the Sahaba also had long hair, so I'm growing my hair," trying to deceive his father. So his father said, "Well, if you read properly, you'll also see that none of them drove cars." So the whole point of the story is, as youngsters, we should take on board what our elders tell us, because they've been through what we've been through, and they know what life has to offer. And we shouldn't always think that we're the most cleverest person and we know everything. And we shouldn't waste our time in futile activity, in lahwa and la'ib, in play and amusement. Do not waste your time, because every minute that goes past, you're never going to get it back again. So we should make our time constructive and work towards that which is positive. And everything in Islam is positive. Everything in Islam is positive. So we should try and take, even from around us, try and take the positives out of everything. If, for example, we do some training at work, take out all the positives from there and use it. And what do you use to gauge it? You use Quran and Hadith. You will find everything in Quran and Hadith if we look with the right eye. And we find in another hadith, Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "Man ahabba liqa Allah," that one who looks forward to and would love to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also love to meet that person. So if you keep this yearning in your heart to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also love to meet you and me. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability and the understanding to practice upon what has been said, first of all myself, and then yourselves, and then to whoever is listening. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open our doors and grant us and our children safety from the hostile environment around us. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.